Hello, everyone. My name is Julius Freeman. Welcome to the first episode that is titled Tales from a Struggling Indie Writer. I am the creator and writer of the Vigilant Fury and the Ghetto Dragon, and I'm currently the editor of the Kryptonals, currently published by 656 Comics and Blacktooth Comics, available at your local comic shop and also cataloged in previews and distributed by Diamond. Welcome to the first episode. This series, this video series, or this show, whatever you want to call it, is pretty much about my thoughts and as well as my insights of comic book storytelling and comic book production, because I've been involved in making comics for 10 plus years, even though I have not been professionally published by the big publishing comic book companies. I have produced books on my own independently, and I have distributed my books independently. One of which is Ghetto Dragon, and the second of which is Vigilant Fury, which is currently almost complete, drawn by Anthony Gambino. I wrote and produced this story, and I wanted to share the process of developing this story because I've always found the development of stories fascinating. I've always been a fan of when writers not explain but share how they came to this story that eventually became very successful for them, or they just worked for a lot of years. I've always been fascinated with those kind of tales because it's very inspiring, and I'm hoping that people who watch this, who are aspiring writers themselves or yourselves, that you will look upon this video as a template of sorts to inspire you to write your stories, because I'm not one to, I guess, keep the secrets to myself, right? I like to share knowledge. I like to showcase what I've learned to other people who are ready and willing to put their name in the hat and get their stuff out there. Let's talk about the origin of Vigilant Fury. In future videos, I'll cover how I developed Ghetto Dragon, but for now, I want to do Vigilant Fury because this story I was really proud of, because it was the first story that I've ever developed that took me the shortest to develop, as opposed to Ghetto Dragon, which took me about 3 or 4 years to develop. This one took me about 4 months, 4 maybe 5 months to develop, and I was really proud of myself to be able to develop a full story in that amount of time. This is the third iteration, excuse me, of this story idea that I had buzzing in my mind like a annoying mosquito that just buzzing around in my mind. And this story, this archetype story, was an escape from captivity. I didn't know exactly what the story was yet. I just knew I needed to tell a story that involved escaping captivity. Don't know why. I can't explain it. It was one of those things where I had to sit down and write it. I was compelled to write a story that involved someone who was held captive and had to fight their way from their captivity by any means necessary. I really didn't know what the story was going to be yet. So when I sat down and put pen to paper, that's when I developed the first iteration, the first draft, which involved pulp heroes, involved public domain pulp heroes. I did heavy research on old pulp heroes that were in public domain that anyone can use, and I was picking off these obscure characters that looked interesting to me. Originally, it was supposed to be a team of pulp heroes that were a super team of sorts, and they were all captured, and they all worked together to escape from this captivity. As I was developing it and I was writing, their escape, I was killing them off one by one. And when I was doing that, when I was writing those scenes, I found myself liking these characters more and more, and I was telling myself, why am I killing off these characters? So in other words, the more I wrote this, the more it felt like I was writing the end of a massive storyline. Like I was ending this. It felt like an end of a long series where, I introduced these characters. You all grew to love them. They were all in my head. All these backstories of these characters were in my head. I developed the backstories before I wrote the story, and that's when I realized, maybe this isn't the right direction. I essentially scrapped the entire story. I just said, no, I'm not going to do this one. I'm going to keep it in my back pocket. I'll redevelop it. I'll change some things, and I'll make sure that I give these characters their due down the line when I have the opportunity to do so. It can be daunting when you spend, because I think I spent about 2 weeks developing the story. I wrote the plot line, the plot outline, the characters, their backstories, the story, what the story was going to be. It was originally supposed to be a one shot, a 30-page to 40-page one shot comic book story. By the end of it, I was like, I can't tell this story. I can't. I have to say this one. I don't want to kill off these characters. They were so much fun to write. So as I stared at my screen, didn't really know what else to do. I didn't want to use the pulp hero characters anymore. And so as I was sitting there kind of tapping my index finger on the desk, kind of just staring at the blank screen, wondering what am I going to do? I took a break and I looked through my phone, and I'm a big MMA fighter enthusiast. I love MMA. I love watching UFC and old Pride FC clips. And as I was watching a documentary by a YouTuber about, I think it was Frank Shamrock, I was thinking, wow, that'd be interesting. If I wonder what would happen if a UFC fighter was captured and had to fight his way through from his captivity. And the wheels started turning. So then I started writing down this character who was an MMA prospect from LA, and he wants to be a cage fighter, but he just doesn't have the killer instinct. Right? Something is missing from his arsenal of fight. So I kept developing the story, and eventually the same thing. It started with this young man who was a MMA prospect. He wants to be in the UFC. He wants to make it to the UFC, but his trainers keep telling him that he doesn't have that killer instinct that he needs to make it big in the MMA world. And so he comes across this young woman who runs away from her captors, and she begs him to protect her from these men who have been keeping her captive and selling her off to rich elitists from LA in Laurel Canyon. Long story short, he helps the girl out, but now they're after him. They eventually find out who he is, where he lives. They take him, and then he finds himself in a basement, in a large compound basement, trapped and in captivity. He finds a way out, and he literally, not, I shouldn't say literally, but of course, he fights his way to freedom. And that's what the story was going to be. I was really pumped. I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. I was writing it out. I was really pumped with this story. I was really happy with what was coming out, how it was unfolding as I wrote. And so once I finished the plot line, the plot outline, excuse me, and the characters and all that stuff, I normally would always, and still do, pitch my ideas or my story ideas to my wife, who is my proverbial reader, because she doesn't know anything about comic books. She doesn't know anything about stories or movies or anything like that. She just knows what she sees on TV. That's it. Essentially, she's a consumer. She's a consumer of media. I always picture my ideas or what I've developed, and based on her reaction, if I get a weak reaction, then I feel the story is weak. The story is weak, and I have to rewrite it to get her excited about it. And so when I pitched her the idea, she was kind of like, yeah, I feel like I've seen that before. So she told me, I feel like I've seen that movie, or that I've seen that story before in the past. So then I was like, okay, well, that sucks, because I was excited to write it, and I was excited to show it to her, and she then blurred out, "What if it's a girl?" And I was like, "What do you mean? What if it's a girl? What if your protagonist or your hero is a girl?" I was like, "A girl MMA fighter?" She's like, "She doesn't have to be an MMA fighter, just a girl." I was like, "Interesting." So once again, the wheel started turning, and once I scrapped it. I did forget to mention that when I finished writing and developed the second iteration of this story, the title of it was Vigilance. So I did have the title. It was called Vigilance. Once she mentioned, make it into a girl, and I asked her, why would that be more interesting to you? And she said, because a girl can't go can't go toe to toe with another guy. Whereas a guy going up against other men, it's a wolf versus wolf situation, and it's cool, but it's kind of been done. It'd be a lot more interesting if a fox went up against a wolf, or a fox going up against a pack of wolves. And I was like, interesting. Again, interesting. Wheels started turning again. So I scrapped the entire thing again, once again. But now I had something I could latch onto, something that was not only excited me, but also excited a consumer. My wife. Like, again, she's just consumed media. She doesn't care about what happens behind the scenes. She finds that stuff boring, to be honest. That's essentially what became Vigilant Fury. I still had my captive escape, the escape from captivity trope intact, but now it got to the point, the third iteration, now it was a woman who was captured against her will. Again, as a writer, you always got to keep your eyes and mind open, especially from outside sources of yourself. My wife is again, she always provides me with an outsider's perspective on things, because she doesn't know anything about the storytelling techniques or the rules of storytelling. She knows nothing of that. So to have her input really played a pivotal role development of Vigilant Fury. I want to conclude this video because I want to keep these videos short. If you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment, hit the notification bell, because part 2 is going to be about the development of Vigilant Fury, how the dynamic of changing the protagonist from a male to female totally changed the entire thing of the story. Even though I still have my trope, now is a lot different. I had to research about human trafficking and all those things, all those terrible things, by the way, in order to really fuel what this story is essentially about. And it's about a young woman who gets kidnapped from her when she's on vacation by human traffickers, and she finds herself inside a cargo ship, in a cargo with other victims of human trafficking, and she has to find a way out. And the twist of it is that instead of her being a prospect MMA fighter, she is an active Mossad agent that works for the Israeli government. And once I got all that, the story took a 180, and what I have for you guys in store for Vigilant Fury is out of this world bonkers. So keep an eye out for part 2 of this video, of this video series, I should say. And hopefully you guys enjoy part 2, which is the development of Vigilant Fury, and how I developed the story, and how I found the artist Anthony Gambino, who is the current artist right now drawing the book, was almost done with it, and how he was excited about it, and what we approached for the aesthetics and all sorts of great stuff. So hit the like bell, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and we'll keep on going. We keep on trucking. Until next time, guys, you take care. This is Julius Freeman signing out. Peace.